Good. Thank you, Mr. Nishant Kumar. Ladies and gentlemen, at this point in time, let me invite Dr. Selim Raihan, the professor of the Dhaka University and Executive Director, South Asian Network on Economic Modeling, SANEM, a young Bangladeshi academician and researcher with international exposure. Now, I am welcoming Dr. Selim Raihan to place his valuable inputs. Please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm sure that the microphone is working. I must thank the keynote presenter, Ms. Warner, I think, for her excellent presentation. And after that presentation, I was thinking actually what to say more, because she highlighted the major points. She mentioned those numbers, which are very important. And also, towards the end, kind of showed us, the ways how Bangladesh can actually explore the possibilities of financing the infrastructural gap investment. So I thought that probably not to repeat what has been discussed so far. Probably I can touch upon some of the issues which are also very important when we talk about infrastructure investment and also private sector engagement. Because in many of the discussions I find that actually those issues are kind of ignored. First, if I start with that, the point that probably it's my understanding that there is a serious market failure in infrastructure investment. Especially it's not that the private sector would come automatically that to invest in this market. So here there is a role of the public sector is very, very important. And when I say the public sector's role, and the public sector has to be very dynamic, not to be a very old-fashioned public sector. So I think there is a very clear need for the change in the mindset of the public sector in Bangladesh, how they deal with the private sector and engage them in this huge resource requirement, as Ms. Warner, she has rightly pointed out, how to engage the private sector, how to get the best out of them. And probably we can pose the question, I'd really like to hear from the audience too, the very relevant people who are here today and also from the panels. Why has the PPP not been very successful so far in Bangladesh? Have we learned really from the countries who have succeeded in doing so? So that's my first point. Second point, probably we don't really talk much, but that is something very, very important. It's not only the spending. We can talk about quite a lot, like 5% of GDP is needed for infrastructure investment, 5 to 6, maybe more. Actually, the last year, the UNESCOP report from Bangkok, they came up with a suggestion that probably we need around 10% of GDP for infrastructure investment. But it's not about only the spending, but the quality of spending is very, very important. Because the efficiency of the spending or the infrastructure investment, that is also a big question mark when you see the experience in Bangladesh. When you see that the time actually increases, cost escalation, and actually we can't finish the project within the time frame. So how do we solve this problem? Here, I think probably we open up a lot of issues, what we really need to discuss. So I think definitely the numbers are in front of us. We can see those big, big numbers, but behind those numbers, there are many more interesting stories and many more challenges we need to solve. My third point is that the management of the infrastructural issues are very, very important, the infrastructural facilities. So it's not only the hard infrastructure, we have to invest quite a lot on the soft infrastructure, the human capital. And also there I can see that there is a huge market failure. It's not that the private sector has come a long way or very, very enthusiastically to invest on developing the human capital or the skilled labor force. I think here comes the how kind of incentives the public sector or the government is providing and how this public-private partnership is really working well to get this right kind of human capital in the market. We can talk a lot about that 100 special economic zone by 2030. We can have big, big economic zone, but who would operate them? Are we then planning to rely on the foreign expertise? So I think this is something, a big issue, big question mark. We need to solve, and I think unless and until we combine this hard infrastructure with the soft infrastructure in a very efficient way, I think probably we'll get one part of the story right, but other part would tell the whole story completely failure. My final point, I was looking at my watch too. My final point is that more of an institutional issue. I actually wrote an article a couple of years back, and then I was really looking into the whole issue of what I call the entitlement failure in infrastructure. You can definitely recall Nobel laureate Professor Amartya Sen's this entitlement failure idea that you can have one who was describing this famine. He was saying that it's not the shortage of food in the market, it is actually the access to food, the entitlement. You can have actually a supply of food. Actually, when Amartya Sen, he was exploring those famine, and he was saying that it was not the shortage of food which was creating the famine. It was people's access to food. They had serious entitlement failure. So if I apply that concept in the infrastructure, we can actually have a large supply of infrastructure, but still we may find there are many sectors are not being able to enjoy the benefit of the infrastructure. They are actually having the problem of entitlement failure. I give you one example. We can have big flyovers, but unless and until we get our short and small roads well developed and connected to those flyovers, who will actually get into those flyovers? Who will enjoy the benefit of those flyovers? We can actually develop our port, Chittagong port. Definitely we need that. We can have an expressway between Dhaka and Chittagong, but unless and until we can solve the relocation of tannery from Hazaribagh to Savar efficiently, the problem of CTP efficiently, and we get this tannery estate efficiently run, we can't expect that the leather export would increase from $1 billion to $5 billion by 2020. So I think we need to take a step back and understand the whole institutional arrangement behind how we can get this private sector engaged more efficiently in solving this big challenge. And I can tell you that we have very short time. You know, if we really want to achieve 2030 development agenda, it's only 12 years we have. And probably it's not, we can't think that we'll solve all the problem by we'll leave all the problems to solve by the last year of 2030. It's not possible. We have to take steps now. We have to plan, we have to sequence our agenda, and then see what we can do, you know, within the short term by 2025 and by 2030. With this, I'd like to end here. Thank you very much.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you, Dr. Selim. You are really enlightened by your research, by your experience, and by the way you have expounded the subjects here. And I hope we will take it home. We'll go really wiser. And with this word, I thank you once again for your personal experiences that you have shared today. Now, ladies and